This is the brand new Pimax Crystal Super 57 PPD, and here's what I think about it after living with and loving the 50 PPD version. It's the same ridiculous panel with 3840 by 3840 per eye, up to 90 Hz, but sharpened like a chef's knife, the knife which also sliced away from its field of view. Whether this trade is worth it depends on what you play, so let's settle this 57 versus 50 PPD debate right now. But before we dive into the thick of it, first you need to understand what PPD actually means. PPD stands for pixels per degree. It defines how many pixels land inside 1 degree of your field of view. It's also called pixel density. More PPD means that pixels are packed tighter in your view, and that gives you sharper lines, easier to read text, and less shimmer on distant objects. Lower PPD means that the same number of pixels are spread over a wider distance across your view, and the image then is less sharp. Small text and fine details can look a little bit blurry or less precise. To compare, Quest 3 has pixel density of 25 and Quest 3S only 20. The closest one to come to Crystal Super is Play for Dream, which has PPD of 45, so Pimax Crystal Super 50 PPD is already the leader. So imagine getting even more pixels per degree at 57. Still, before you get excited, there are two gotchas that matter in VR. First one is PPD isn't uniform. Lenses tend to stretch the image towards the edges, so PPD is highest near the center. This is what we call the sweet spot, and then it becomes a little bit less dense toward the periphery. And when you read PPD values of headsets like 50 or 57, they're essentially telling you the peak central density that you will get, but not the average all the way to the edges. But granted, with Pimax Crystal Super, the distortions at the periphery are so small that they are basically unnoticeable, which is a huge reason why I love my Crystal Super. The second thing to remember is that you have your physical panel resolution and you have your render resolution. Something that many VR users don't know is that the VR software often asks your GPU to render a slightly bigger image than the headset panel itself. This is called oversampling. That's because the lenses bend and stretch your picture, and sometimes they make it look blurry and even at the center. But by rendering a bit higher than your actual panel values, this allows to shrink it through the lens, so that way you can keep the center sharp, and your SteamVR will automatically show you the recommended resolution, and that's the optimal render resolution required to render in maximum sharpness on your headset. And this number is always slightly higher than the panel's physical resolution. So that recommended resolution number gives you a better sense of the real workload required from your PC, and that's why two devices with the same physical panel resolution can perform very differently in practice, depending on how their lenses distort the image and how much correction it requires by using oversampling. So here's where things get real. 57 PPD trims horizontal FOV compared to the 50 version, and on paper that's about 120 versus 127 degrees, but on practice it feels a little bit lower, and 57 pushes you to a noticeably tighter end of that range. It's still far from a tunnel vision, of course, but I could see this constraints right away after comparing it to 50 and after testing both headsets side by side. And that small but noticeable difference can be crucial depending on what kind of game you play. If you've ever played sim racing games, periphery equals awareness. Side-by-side cars, brake markers that you can catch early, small details on the road that you feel without turning your head, and all of that can shave milliseconds from your final score that might define whether you win or lose. And that's why, in my opinion, 50 PPD is a better option for VR sim racing. It shows more of the track and the traffic at once, and the 50 PPD is already sharp enough to read the dashboards, the road signs, and distant cars very clearly. The reduction in FOV, though, while it is a small reduction, it can make a huge difference in sim racing performance, and the pixel density improvement will simply not help you race better. Still, the 57 PPD shines when your eyes spend more time reading and inspecting rather than reacting quickly, and that means one thing: Microsoft Flight Simulator. Microsoft Flight Simulator is basically the perfect stress test for pixels per degree. You're surrounded by gauges, panels, tiny buttons, and endless scenery that stretches for miles and miles away. It's not about quick reflexes or periphery awareness, but it it is about decoding the tiny informations without needing to move your head every 2 seconds. So with 57 ppd, the cockpit turns into something that you can actually live in. And this has got to be some kind of a record, because this is the most photorealistic image that you will ever experience in VR at home. And because Flight Sim is already a seated and forward-facing game, that slightly smaller field of view doesn't really hurt you when you play this game. And you're not whipping your head side to side every second. You're basically just spending your time scanning instruments, checking out the horizon, and you're just soaking in all the beauty of the surroundings. You're probably going to be completely mesmerized by all of this mind-blowing realism. That's exactly where 57 ppd will pay off to enjoy it to the fullest. But don't get me wrong, the 50 ppd is still already, I consider it elite. But mathematically speaking, 57 ppd adds about 10 to 15 more pixels per degree at the center, which is that extra slice of clarity on top of something that's already great, and it makes it simply excellent. Chef's kiss. Interestingly, the 57 ppd version of Crystal Super is not considered a premium tier compared to the 50 ppd version, and Pimax know this, and that higher pixel density trades your field of view, so both of these headsets are actually priced the same on their website, with the upfront payment of $799 and $936 later. So it is not about being better or being worse, it is which trade you want: wider window with 50 or sharper micro detail with 57. You really choose which one you want to buy based on your use case and not by tier. And to make things even more interesting, I've got a discount code that works on both Crystal Super 50 and 57 ppd versions. So currently there aren't any other discounts happening at the moment, so feel free to use my code to save up a bit, whichever headset you want to get. I will leave it in the description and in the pinned comment. So how do you make this decision? I will quickly go over a few games that you might want to play on your monster PC, and that will help you understand which version of Pimax Crystal Super might work best specifically for them. And we will start with No Man's Sky. Big open planets, dogfights, scanning, all that means that peripheral awareness matters in this game. So I would go for 50 for No Man's Sky. The 50's wider field of view makes on-foot exploration and flight feel more natural and lets you see those attacking animals, sentinels, and ships earlier without the constant head turns. Next one, if you want to play Skyrim VR, you probably should go for 57 if you're running a heavy visual mods and obsess over foliage shimmer, roof lines, the distance, or tiny UI elements that you want to be able to read. And I think that that's really important, because reading menus, reading your diaries and quests is a big part of Skyrim. So 57 allows you to keep the UI size a bit smaller, and you'll still be able to read it no problem. But keep in mind that for melee, archery, if you want to avoid surprise attacks, again, peripheral awareness may help you stay alive for longer, so you can still go for 50 ppd with that game. As for Half-Life Alyx, text isn't really the star of that game anyway, and the extra periphery at 50 ppd version will help you see those headcrabs coming sooner. Plus, there's lots of handwork and quick peeks and enemies from angles, so you might want to be able to see, more of the field of view. 50 is better for this game's functionality, but if you merely want to replay your favorite game to experience this photorealistic clarity, I really hope that you will get 57 just so that you can witness that. And now Cyberpunk 2077 with Luke Ross VR mode. Personally, I would go with 57 ppd because dense neon signage and thin UI glyphs, the subtle text and the fine geometry would simply look steadier on this headset. But for city strolls, for hacking, for shard reading and photo mode, I would go for 57 because that adds that extra clarity, which looks fantastic. And here's some bonus info for you about Crystal Super models: ultra wide and 8K micro OLED, their specs and where they might fit in this broader line of Pimax Crystal Supers. Crystal Super ultra wide will feature approximately 140 horizontal FOV with 50 ppd. Same 3840 by 3840 per eye. It's the largest window option. It is going to be the next one that I review on my channel. And Crystal Super 8K Micro OLED finally will introduce the Micro OLED and not QLED panel, but only 105 horizontal FOV. It will trade FOV for deeper blacks, these higher contrasts of Micro OLED. So you can expect the very best dark scene cinema and night flying in Microsoft Flight Sim, but it is also the narrowest FOV of the lineup. As I've said, I will be reviewing these headsets on my channel very soon, so make sure to subscribe to pcvr so that you don't miss these upcoming reviews. And in the meantime, grab the discount code to save $20 on either Pimax Crystal Super or other Pimax headsets on their website, and check out my detailed review of the Pimax Crystal Super 50 PPD to see if that one is the right one for you. And I will see you there.